Okay, over to you, Anne.
Okay, thanks very much, Natalie, and thanks so much for inviting us to speak and for bringing this gathering together. It's really important, as you say, to bring everybody together. And we're very glad to be bringing our experience of the movement of mothers in particular, fighting against unjust, arbitrary and traumatic separations in the family courts. I have to say, we always start with mothers because mothers are most often children's primary carers, loving and protecting them from the time that they're in the womb, which does establish a special bond between them. So to answer the question, what is the family court crisis? I'll give some background about support not separation, and then talk a bit more about some of the issues that we've been dealing with. So the Support Not Separation Coalition is coordinated by Legal Action for Women. It includes organizations of single mothers, women of color, asylum seekers and refugees, women with disabilities, rape survivors, breastfeeding advocates, kinship carers, psychotherapists, men and social workers who are committed to defending mothers and children against unwarranted separation and the devaluing of the mother-child relationship. We do work closely with Give Us Back Our Children in the US, which is part of Support Not Separation, and with mothers in other countries who share our aims. And very glad to see Saranya Iyer from India is on, and she's done fantastic work in India. I strongly recommend the film Mrs. Chatterjee v. Norway to everybody. So in 2017, we published a dossier called Suffer the Little Children and Their Mothers. And in the same year, we started having a monthly picket outside the Central Family Court. And we do a Twitter storm at the same time. We also have monthly collective self-help meetings at the Crossroads Women's Centre, where we're based, and they're also online. And mothers can exchange tactics drawing on their own experience and also the experiences of some of the groups based at the Women's Centre, in particular, Women Against Rape, Winvisible, and Women of Colour in the Global Women's Strike. We do have a blog as well, and an online self-help guide, which we refer women to. So I think the crisis in the family courts is first of all a crisis for mums and children, and it's best illustrated by the experiences of the hundreds of mothers, plus some grannies, aunties, and families who we've been in touch with over the last 8 to 9 years. So we did a snapshot a couple of years ago, and I suspect that the information would be the same, which was that basically 94% of the mums who got in touch are single mothers, nearly all on low incomes. 83% had suffered domestic violence. 42% had mental health issues. 40% were women of color and or immigrant women, and 17% had a physical disability which was used against them as well. And nearly all of them were fighting for contact with their children. Either they were trying to stop violent fathers having unsafe, unsupervised contact, or they were trying to re-establish contact with children who had been given to the father, or they were fighting to be in touch, to have much more contact with their children who were in foster care as a result of hostile social workers and judges. Over half the mothers had had their children removed, including 10% whose children had been adopted without their consent. And we know that the level of forced adoptions in the UK is extremely high. And it really gives lie to the idea that forced adoptions are historic. They're not, they're very much present day. So we also know that there are 4 million children living in poverty in the UK, and child neglect, in inverted commas, i.e. poverty, is the single biggest target of the corporate parent, together with domestic violence, which is deeply connected to poverty because it stops women very often from escaping from violent relationships. So there are now more children in care than at any other time, over 82,000 children. They include a disproportionate number of children of colour, including those taken because their parents, or mothers usually, had no recourse to public funds. and disabled children, which Tracy will speak about. Children in the poorest neighborhoods are at least 10 times more likely to be in care than children in more affluent areas. And we know that social workers and local authorities refuse to implement Section 17 of the Children Act, which would give mothers and families support, and instead focus their resources on child protection and spending enormous amounts of money on fostering and adoption and keeping children in residential homes. So, and we know that they've cut the money for Section 17 by 50% in the last few years, whereas spending on child protection has increased by 30%. So that tells you what their priorities are. And what happens is, as Section 17 resources have shrunk, mums who go to social services to get the support they're entitled to, including because they're victims of domestic violence or need support for their disabled children, for example, often get pushed straight into child protection instead of getting the help that they need. And really, by identifying more children, quote, at risk, social services are fueling their own demand because they depend on a supply of children to keep coming through to make some of these enormous profits, as I said. And unlike mothers who are constantly investigated, blamed, punished, child protection have near total impunity, but they can and are challenged. And a lot of what we discuss in our collective self-help meetings is what tactics work in how to try to hold social workers to account. And we do know that if a mum has an advocate in those meetings, it can make a big difference because the social workers know that they're being watched. So just to give you an idea about the massive privatization of children's services, the largest 20 independent providers of children's social care made profits of more than £300 million in 2022. So that profit, they're making profits from children and mums' misery. And we know that in a lot of those homes, the children are actually being abused, neglected. We know that 12,000 children a year disappear from care, so-called care. And what we also know is that the outcomes for children who've been through the care system are really disastrous. So they're 10 times more likely not to be in education. By the time they leave care, 50% will be in the criminal justice system by the age of 21, 25% will end up in prison, and 50% will have mental distress. And the worst figure is that 70% die prematurely and are 20 times more likely to die by the age of 25. So that's the so-called care that they're getting from the so-called corporate parent when they've been taken from mums and families who, if they had a fraction of the money that is spent on foster care and these huge sums of money, would never find themselves in touch, even needing to be in touch with social workers in the first place. So somebody mentioned the harm report, and that was a big victory because it was a Ministry of Justice report which took evidence from lots of different people, and it found that women face a number of barriers in the family courts, including sexism, racism, and classism. We would add to that disability discrimination, and that about sums up what is actually going on. And I have to say that mothers who are fighting, especially in private law proceedings, face a hostile environment in the family courts in which the misogynist father's lobby is deeply embedded. They've heavily influenced CAFCAS, who are supposed to protect children's welfare, which we know they don't. And they're very good friends with the president of the family division. And so professionals in private law cases and often in public law as well, increasingly support fathers as the mother-child bond and the importance of mothers in children's lives is dismissed, ignored, or devalued. And they never take into account that children are often much more traumatized by being taken from families than they are when they're forced to live with strangers. Basically, that trauma is never considered. And I have to say also that kinship carers get much less financial and other support than foster carers, and that's one of the things that has to change. And of course, professionals don't take into account the stress of long court proceedings, which are often dragged for many, many years, and are enough to, affect anyone's mental health. And the fact is that mothers are tortured by the constant threat that children will be taken, and by the devastation when they are actually taken. And that's compounded by the trauma that the children face, which is hardly ever mentioned or considered. So I think it's clear that the family court crisis is long-standing and deep-seated, with a lot of vested interests who are determined to maintain the status quo. But we feel very strongly that things are changing and have changed a lot in the last 7 or 8 years since we started our picket, as a result of campaigning by all sorts of different campaigning by individuals and by organizations, grassroots organizations, by mothers fighting individual cases and winning them. And I think, and also a really crucial victory recently has been that they have now extended the right of journalists to report from family court cases, because as we all know, one of the key issues has been the secrecy of the family courts. And we've been saying all along that a key demand had to be to open the courts. There are now 16, I think, courts where journalists will be able to report, including Central Family Court. So that's good, because hopefully we'll see them. We're there every first Wednesday of the month outside Family Court. You're very welcome to join us, 12:30 to 1:30. And the Twitter storm at the same time. But getting for journalists to be able to report what actually goes on is a victory which has been long and hard fought for, and we must fight to extend it to all the family courts, and to make sure that they don't try to row back when they see, oh yes, the public is finding out a bit more about what's been going on behind these closed doors. So we do think it's really important to count all our victories, and they may not be a massive, such a big one as that, but it may be a mum, getting her child back from foster care. It may be a mum getting a reasonable amount of, or the contact that she wants with her children when the father had been obstructive for very many years. So we have to count all those victories because they help to build the movement, which is what we're all hopefully talking about. So the key things that we've been campaigning about, just to end with this, and we do look very much forward to discussing with you all, what we can all do together, as Natalie has said. So valuing the bond between mother and child is really crucial. Defending the right of children to be with their mother, their first carer and protector, and their right to be with their birth family. The right to financial and other support under Section 17 of the Children Act, and for support under the Care Act. Opening all the family courts, as I've said. Stop children being taken because of poverty, which is camouflaged as neglect. And there has been a victory in Philadelphia and California, where local authorities have made changes to their regulations or whatever they are, to say that poverty and manifestations of poverty should no longer be included in the definition of neglect. And that's really important, something we want to campaign on. We have to stop the abuse of state powers by getting, quote, future emotional harm abolished, because that allows the state to just predict anything they like, and it's completely outrageous. We want to abolish the presumption of contact, which enables violent fathers to insist on contact and even custody of children, and the use of parental alienation. There have been some victories in relation to parental alienation, which maybe we can discuss. Obviously, we want to stop adoptions without the consent of the mother and the birth family. The privatization of children's services has to stop. Legal aid has to be reinstated for all family law cases. And crucially, we're campaigning for a care income for mothers and other primary carers, so that the work that mothers do caring for children is financially recognised, and so that no mother can be accused of neglect because she's poor. We know that foster carers get between £400 and £600 a week, so why not mothers who are doing the caring work, which would prevent the institutionalisation of children and avoid lifelong trauma. So I'll leave it there. And as I say, we very much look forward to discussing how we can all help build this international movement, which is very much needed. And thanks again to Natalie.
Thank you so much, Anne. Tracy, are you going to come in and say a few words as well?
Yes, sure, of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Natalie, for letting me speak. My name is Tracy Norton, and I'm the coordinator of the Disabled Mothers' Rights Campaign. The Disabled Mothers' Rights Campaign is coordinated by Winvisible, Women with Visible and Invisible Disabilities, and is part of the Support Not Separation Coalition that you've heard Anne talk about. As disabled women, we are campaigning for our rights to start a family and keep our children, and to get the support we are entitled to under the Children's Act, the Care Act, and the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. Winvisible is a multiracial grassroots group, and we bring together women with various disabilities from different backgrounds: asylum seekers, refugees, immigrant, and UK born. Many disabled women are mothers and carers for children, partners, parents and friends, on top of coping with our own disability or ill health. I'm very glad to be asked to speak today because this is a subject that is very close to my heart. I'm a mother with a painful, invisible disability, and I have a severely disabled son who was wrongly taken from me when he was a teenager, not because I'd harmed him, but to hide the mistakes made by a hospital who nearly killed him, and to take away the hard-fought medical and educational funding that I'd won to keep him in the community. We've not actually harmed our children, but government funding has stopped to support the most vulnerable in our society in favour of a privatised industry of fostering and institutional care, as Anne's talked about, which makes millions in profits on the back of our children's misery. My son, abandoned into a completely unsuitable, unregulated home, was not allowed to see me, even at Christmas when all he wanted was a hug. He was not allowed a Christmas tree or the usual gifts by SS, social services, because that was seen as symbols of my love. And due to his disability, he was not able to access a shower for 2 years. His dirty clothes were riddled with fleas. He was denied an education and medical treatment. And when we eventually got him home through the amazing help of Support Not Separation, the abuse he'd suffered had left him traumatized, something he will never recover from. My smiling, funny child had lost his love of life and smile. I had to throw away his infested clothes, and he slept in a warm bed with sheets and blankets and had his first hot, home-cooked meal in 2 years. The abuse he'd suffered in care left him traumatized, something he will never recover from. He had been cruelly neglected and left with matted hair and broken teeth. This is what the government calls care. And his treatment is typical of thousands of children in state care, where children are raped, abused, and traumatized because they are taken away from the protection of their mothers. We are forced to struggle behind the closed doors of the secret family court to get our children back, who've been taken under false pretenses, and to fight the sexist and corrupt social workers, lawyers, and judges. The recent independent review of children's social care was clear. The vast majority of children do not need to be in care. They need more support in the community, but they have been denied this through decades of austerity by this current government, and Anne talked about that, some of that earlier in section 17. The problem starts with child protection and the so-called parental blame, which is really blame the mother. In the years fighting, first against child protection twice, I won both times, and then to get my son home from family court, I watched and learned and read. I realized that child protection had little to do with the truth, but I had no support outside the family, and was shamed despite being innocent into silence and gagged by the secret family courts and given false information, not only by social workers, but my own lawyers. Support Not Separation changed that for me. They introduced me to advocacy through the collective self-help. And that's what I'm now committed to, because I don't want any other mother to suffer the same way I have suffered. Our campaign through the Disabled Mothers' Rights Campaign included working with Channel 5 News, which has helped to put discrimination against mothers on the agenda. We worked with Channel 5 on its news feature, which announced the shocking figures that found parents with learning disabilities are 54 times more likely to have their children taken into care than the figures of those with physical disabilities, it really is not much better. We expose that disability is seen as harmful to children and a safeguarding risk, a reason to automatically remove children. And a disproportionate number of disabled children are in care, as families with disabled children are the hardest hit by poverty and discrimination, especially if we're single mothers. And as you heard Anne talk, poverty is used to take our children. Poverty is not neglect. Once they become looked after, disabled children are hard to place, and they often end up miles away from home in provisions which don't meet their needs, such as my son, or in worse cases, actively harms them, as in my son's case. Disabled children are more vulnerable to abuse and neglect, a risk which can increase when they're exposed to multiple professionals and carers. Disabled mothers and children themselves are not recognised as experts in their own experience. While councils refuse mothers the support that they're entitled to under the Children's Act and the Care Act, they spend many millions on taking children from us and placing them in institutions, mostly run by private companies, profiteering from our pain. Disabled children removed from their disabled mothers, despite never suffering any harm in their mother's care, are 4 times more likely to be abused in care. Disabled mothers and single mothers generally are more likely to be living in poverty, and so social services use our poverty as neglect to remove our children. The fact that the cost of living is higher for disabled mothers and made worse if our children are also disabled, we often, as in myself, have to cut back on food just to supply medical needs to our children. Councils who say they can't afford this support to mothers are entitled to pay private companies obscene amounts, such as $250,000 a year, to place one disabled child in an institution like the Hesley Group, where rape and abuse are rife. And let's not forget the many thousands of children raped and abused at Shirley Oaks, Rotherham, and many other places. And they were in state care, and nothing happened to the social workers and police who allowed this abuse to continue. Being disabled and being a victim of domestic abuse, which disproportionately affects disabled women, being a single mother on low income, being young, or having grown up in care are regularly flagged up as a safeguarding issue, and we get referred to social services instead of the support. And we come up against the preconceived ideas and prejudices that are disguised thinly as concern for our children, so that they can take our children from us. And the government's current proposal to extend mandatory reporting will just make the situation worse. Time and time again, when mothers ask for support for their children with disabilities and or with special educational needs, they find themselves, instead of getting support, investigated under child protection and their children taken away by social services. Mothers are entitled to help, but we are all too often ignored or accused of exaggerating our children's needs. In some cases, accused of fabricated induced illness, inventing or exaggerating our children's disabilities, even when they have an inherited genetic illness. And this was our second piece that was aired on Channel 5 News, along with another reason for taking children from their loving mothers. Fabricated and induced illness, just like parental alienation in domestic abuse cases, is used to deny the disability or violence that mothers are reporting and to take children. Fabricated and induced allegations have a devastating effect, often lifelong, on the families, including the children, the very people that the system is supposed to protect. And the research finds that if a disabled mother is 4 times more likely to be accused of FII than a non-disabled mother, suggesting widespread unlawful disability discrimination. Another very troubling fact is that 50% of reported cases of FII were made after a parent complained about the actions of a professional, i.e. a hospital or a school or a social worker. Disabled women are not unfit mothers, and we must end the discrimination by social services and the family courts. Our legal rights, our children's rights must be implemented, and the DMRC, that's the Disabled Mothers' Rights Campaign, has come together to make disabled mothers and our children more visible and raise our voices in the disability movement and community. Our Charter of Rights, which we launched last year, spells out what we're entitled to and what councils and the family courts must do to end the discrimination and hostility we face. Disabled mothers are seen as unfit mothers. We are not unfit mothers. Many of us are on low income and have high disability costs and energy bills, but we are blamed for not being able to provide for our children. But poverty is not neglect. And as Anne said, we want a care income for all the caring work that we do. Social services take children from disabled mothers, including on the grounds of our children will be our future carers, which is completely untrue. And they label that as future emotional harm. They use this to adopt disabled mothers' children out. But proper support for disabled mothers, which actually we're legally entitled to, and for families is what is needed, not separation from the mother they love and who loves them. And I invite all of you here to join us and sign our charter and join us to help make change. Anyone who truly cares about the well-being of children must support mothers' struggle to end these cruel separations. Mothers are the first protectors and should be supported. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Tracy, as always, for your very, very eloquent advocacy there. That's exactly why I invited you and Anne and your whole coalition of groups who are supporting many, many communities, including communities impacted by race. It does include men as well. It's not a community that excludes men who are harmed by these policies. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will stop yabbering and get to the questions. But first of all, I don't know if you've seen that I've launched a poll asking people whether they would like to us to stop the recording. Is there anybody who is unable to participate further if we continue recording when we reach Q&A? I think that there is quite a strong feeling that we would like to. I'm actually not sure where you find the poll. Can anybody help with that? I've got 4 people who have.
Natalie.
Yeah.
On my screen, I'm not sure if it's the same on yours, but the poll comes up in activities, the 3 little dots and then activities.
That's right. Yeah. I don't know if people can find it, but you can also put in the chat or just say if anybody's got strong feelings that they would like to stop the recording because they cannot participate otherwise. I've got a few people with their hands up. Why can't I see it? Raised hands. Here we go. Yes, I can. So that's Marie. I'm going to just wait for some more responses to come in through the chat. Hang on a minute. Yeah, you know what the problem is? The thing is, Helen, I think there's actually very little way. If you're on mute and with your video, if you're with your camera off, there's no way that anybody can actually identify you. and even so, if you're not, if you're not speaking, there's no reason really to be worried. There are people who really do actively want it to be recorded. It doesn't necessarily have to apply for the Q&A. So that's why I'm just sort of asking for a little bit of feedback from people. Yeah, that's right. You can take steps to sort of anonymize yourself if you are concerned about privacy or contempt of court. It would be good to have a record, I agree.
I can try if it's going to work. Is it actually broadcast audio?
It's still very crackly, so if you can...
Is that any better?
Yes, it is.
Ah, right, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, it's very nice to meet you all, and let me just put my camera back on. Okay, right, yes. I want to make sure everybody is aware what's actually really going on here, because I hear a lot of opinions about women saying that they have lost their children and they've had their children given to the fathers, and the fathers say, oh, well, we're losing our children because social services are stepping in and we're removing the children from the father, or vice versa. Now, this is a systemic system which is trying to remove children from parents. It is not there to help your child. It is not there to help any child. I've been fighting this for 12 years, and this started because I had a situation in my family home. I was not coping with the fact that my children's mother was not very well. They were giving her medication when she was not very well, and I decided the best option was to remove my child to their grandparents' house. Effectively, this was the start of this whole mess. Once social services stepped in and got hold of this, because I had put a court hearing in to actually physically try to remedy the situation, this went ballistic. The social worker corrupted all of the documents and effectively was caught fabricating documents. There are now cases with the Parliamentary and Health Ombudsman which effectively detail fabrication of reports in East Sussex. I believe this is evident in East Sussex, Norfolk and Kent. They have very, very high care numbers because of the fact that they have been abducting children and paying for care in Northern Ireland, which effectively is bankrupting the local authorities. They don't even know what these payments are actually even for. I'm very sorry that I hear lots of people saying that this situation is happening because of the father in the family. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I find any domestic situation difficult. I just think there needs to be a better system than what we've got. All of the systems seem there to abduct children. If there's 500,000 children in Northern Ireland which have come from this social worker and this children's director who was caught in Australia informing everybody that he had destroyed documents in his previous jobs, why has this man got a knighthood, the same as a post office worker who basically ruined all of those postmasters? This seems to be exactly the same scandal progressing in a different manner, and everybody is allowing this to go ahead and not realizing what the real situation is behind it all. This is commerce. This is about an ability to raise money for the Department of Education. I really have to stress this because of the fact that it's awful that this is going ahead, and nothing, and I mean nothing I have tried to date has actually improved this. I currently have letters with the offices in Northern Ireland, and I've published a video in the link which shows that they are fully aware that they are systematically following the same situation as the Sisters of Mercy and St Patrick's Guild in Northern Ireland, which is alleged to have buried children in their car parks. I am being provided no evidence of my daughter even being alive. And when I provided a photograph to these people, they could not even identify her. It's ridiculous. You have people talking in these core meetings who don't even know or have never met your child. You know, I beg people to record meetings. Every meeting you go to, if it's online, record it, because you've got to out all of these situations that are occurring. I am still trying to push the directors of the post office to bring out a drama that will bring out and put some of these questions to light, because of the fact that it is so unnerving.
Absolutely. Actually, one of the talks that we're going to have tomorrow is about the Irish mother and baby homes. I think it will be very interesting. I watched a video in which the lady who'll be speaking with us tomorrow appeared with two adults who were born in mother and baby homes, and the parallels with what we're going through were astonishing. And what they were saying was that back in the 1950s already, this was a child trafficking model. They worked out how to monetize the removal of children in those days, and now still from their mothers, from unmarried mothers, but also from intact families as well. Yeah, so that will be a really crucial, I think, talk for all of us to understand the mechanisms, and this has been going on for a very long time. Interesting you mentioned Ireland in that context.
Well, I think there's a problem because of the fact that people are not aware that the laws have not changed since St. Patrick's Guild or these other scandals occurred. Now, when you're acting under the same laws and then you're not even obeying the law that says you have to provide contact between a child and their parents, then there has to be something fundamentally wrong with the whole system in Northern Ireland. And of course, we can't even complain to the executive because the executive has been out since 2017.
One of the things that I'd like to sort of try to raise during this conference is the fact that in the family jurisdiction, judges have got unlimited discretion. And what that essentially means is they can do what they like. And this is why we're bumping up against this problem where we're saying, okay, here is the law on this side, and the outcome of this case is completely in opposition to the law and the evidence. Now, why is that? It's because there is unlimited discretion, there is no transparency, and there is no accountability. And yeah, that's sort of especially another layer, Martin, if you're in a jurisdiction which doesn't have an effective parliament.
Well, they don't apply it. I mean, I had to sack my solicitor because he had a meeting with the social workers right outside the hearing and decided what was going to go and happen in the meeting, which was supposed to be overseen by a judge. I sacked him on the stand when he couldn't physically answer a simple question of what he'd said 5 minutes before. Now, as a result of that, my judge decided that he was going to act as my legal advisor. And he observed the social worker perjuring herself on 2 separate occasions. She couldn't even remember what meetings that she'd had when she'd met with all of the experts and effectively created their reports. The judge only decided that he wanted another expert, which was great. We thought, hooray, we might get some physical help from someone else. This went ahead okay, but during that, we left by the back door and saw the same social worker coming in, and when it was questioned, we were told that she was coming there to write the reports. So there's no uniformity in any of the reporting. You know, in normal court, when you have an expert testimony, there is supposed to be an expert behind it. If it's the social worker doing all of it, we're all in trouble.
Yeah, I have discovered that these problems are not limited to the family jurisdiction. It is absolutely endemic in the family jurisdiction, and I guess people know that perjury is a criminal offence. Perverting the course of justice is a criminal offence. There is a criminal offence of malfeasance in public office, and none of these things are being prosecuted. It seems that they're more widespread in the family jurisdiction, probably because of the level of secrecy, but also, I believe, because of the levels of corruption where children are involved, because there is so much money in it. But I found out that it's also happening in financial cases, that it is a systemic problem affecting civil justice. So I think that helps us to think about what kinds of solutions we can be looking for from these problems. I think it's helpful for all of us to step outside a little bit of the silo of family law, because when we're sort of trapped inside it, sometimes we're not looking at the bigger and more systemic points, and this is one of the things I'd really like to try to advocate for. Can I ask?
My point I was making was that if the social worker was doing this and the judge is aware of it and the judge is representing me legally and he heard perjury on the stand because the social worker had submitted reports that she couldn't remember where the hell she was, why did the judge not take this into criminal law?
Well, very good question. Yeah, excellent question.
And also, the judge was not certified to send the children to Northern Ireland either.
This is horrendous. I'm hearing a lot of stories about children being sent far, from their families, where, who knows what, I don't even want to say, is a very, very serious issues you're raising. And thank you. Let's bring all of these issues together and to try to sort of build out a good picture of what is actually happening, and then work out, what are the approaches to tackling them.
I mean, I'm hoping to, once I've got my 3 books, which is the trilogy, I'm going to send them to the Royal Courts of Justice and ask them exactly what's going on.
I think we need to be sending them to Parliament and making them as public as possible.
Well, the problem with sending them to Parliament, you have to ask to physically send anything to the Prime Minister, and you have to pass this system situation before you can even send anything to them. And it's very complicated because it's not as straightforward as writing a letter to your Prime Minister. You've got to ask a specific department to actually get permission so that he will actually see it. And I haven't managed to get to that point yet.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, I'm multitasking a little bit.
That's fine.
Typing into the chat here.
Thank you for your time.
No worries. Who's next? Let's see. Is that your name? I'm sorry, I hope I haven't pronounced it incorrectly. Are you able to come off mute and speak to us? Sure, I see your hands up, but for some reason you're not appearing in my queue. Shilly Shona, whichever of you manages to get off mute and speak, you're very welcome. Okay, while you two try to sort out your tech problems, Chrissy, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks a lot. I wanted to begin by thanking you for pulling this together, because I think one of the most important things is that we do hear from the grassroots. I mean, the narrative has been taken over by those in authority and those in power, and yet the reality of what's happening in our lives and on the ground is really, quite invisible. And I mean, one of the things, for example, Anne mentioned the protests outside the family court, which I think is now 7 years. Anne, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. But during all of that time, and from when it began, it's always been very multiracial and represented all sectors of mothers and carers who are going through, the abomination that is the family court. And All African Women's Group, which is part of Global Women Against Deportations, which I jointly coordinate, have always had a presence on that picket line, and have always spoken about the particular situation that mothers who fled rape and other torture and are seeking protection and safety in this country have faced, whether that is because they've established other relationships with partners who recognize their vulnerability to being rounded up by the Home Office and deported, and are therefore, you know, very vulnerable to having to stay, them and their children, in violent situations. I mean, one woman spent years being sexually abused and raped and was only able to escape, and only really, you know, took on to escape from that situation when the man that she was with also attacked her son. You know, so there's many hidden situations that women are fleeing, who cannot go anywhere near the family courts, who cannot go to get help and assistance, because largely that might mean in them being deported, you know, back to the situations they fled. So there are those situations, and they formed themselves a mothers group that's campaigning for family reunification with the children that they were forced to leave behind for safety when they did flee and come to this country. You know, so that when they win their status and their right to remain, they have another battle, just like mums, you know, in Support Not Separation have to get family reunification. And this is to bring their children to join them, which they have every right to do. You know, so the battles that we face are the same ones. I think it was Martin who described it's a systemic system. It's a system where those of us who are really at the bottom of the pile, whether we're working class, whether we've got disabilities, whether we're women working in the sex industry, all of us are those who the authorities care little about, and they care little about our children. And so that fight and that struggle that we bring together with the groups at the Women's Centre, which includes a men's group, Payday Men, and in fact a former social worker. One of the men is a former social worker who's invaluable in advising us what rights we have to look after our children. And the other issue, of course, is that many of us, myself included, are grandmothers. You know, so we've also got other levels of care and what we're doing to prevent our children's children from ending up in the process. And the experiences that we bring together, whether they're like my own, which is somebody who could have ended up in the care system because I was born in the 50s, white mother from Germany who, you know, fought very hard to keep me, when a lot of other children born in my circumstances did end up in care. So we've been bringing all of our experiences together to make the fight, to put our individual skills and experiences together, and to make it international. Because I think what was said right at the very beginning is that this is not, the system is not just against those of us in the UK, it is everywhere. And when we are together in that way, we are so much stronger, you know, because, I mean, seeing what the film, Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway, it was terribly painful to watch, but she won. And these are the things that we learn, that others are winning things all around the world, which we can use here in this country. And I think that's really resonates with what you're trying to do by bringing this kind of, you know, grassroots campaigners, people that want to do it for themselves and know what justice means and what it should look like on every level about everything about our lives. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much indeed. I was just distracted there for a moment because I'm just putting in a link to the film Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway, if anybody would like to have a look. I've put the link to Netflix. Yeah, thank you very much indeed, and absolutely agree. I'm so glad to get that positive, you know, validation from you about what we're trying to achieve here as well. Who do we have next? Carol.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello there.
Hello. Right. I've been through the social system myself with my child. I'm disabled. My child's disabled. I'm a mother of 3 disabled children, 2 of which are adults now. One is leaving the possible clutches of the social services, since she's now reaching the age of maturity. What I have found is, and I have been advised by someone high up in the law system, I cannot give a name for obvious reasons, he has said, and he has done for me, and it has concerned the social workers when you do this, in my opinion, that you find the law, you take copies of the law. I agree with Martin that you should record this, that you are visibly aware of the law in their presence, preferably with an advocate if you can find one, which is very difficult, I understand. But I feel that one of the main things that people need to be taught is what is their actual legal rights. On the top of this, I am not sure how many other people, I have won a social ombudsman case stating that Hampshire County Council were practicing injustice towards me and my family, which was a hard fought battle. They then, in my opinion, and I use this a lot because obviously it's legalese, in my opinion and in my lived experience, and I hope other people will learn this, they can't have you for saying in your opinion, or as some may believe. So please be very careful how you say things, people who are saying things. You don't want to get yourself into trouble. So as I was saying, in my opinion, you know, there is also, and in my experience, in my knowledge, that Cyprus and various other countries have deliberately not signed up to the Hague Convention. There is a mothers network that can support women who need to flee, because I've had to, my family had to flee from the UK, from England to Scotland. I had raised for a number of years the fact that I was very suspicious about the behaviour of my ex during child contact, which is social services enforced. It is turned out 7 years later that the police were actually investigating him for being a suspected paedophile. I did, however, win my case and kept my child through the family court, even though the judge had private emails of character references through his private emails on the character of my ex, saying he was an exceptionally good father. This just, I want to be able to use my experience, and I'm very happy to do that, to teach others what I have learned, because I have learned it the hard way, like most other mothers here, and it shouldn't continue for the next generation. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Oh, Carol, thank you so much. It's incredible how many mothers have been through this, and fathers too. We have, I do acknowledge the experience of fathers, and that's why, fathers are welcome and present here as well.
Yes, I agree with you that fathers have gone through terrible situations as well.
Yeah, I'd like this to be a sort of space of, active listening and compassionate, empathy. What did I want to say? Yeah, the thing that how people who've been through the system, even successfully, then actually dedicate a large part of their lives to trying to help others. And thank you to everybody who's doing that. You mentioned about international aspects in the Hague Convention. I don't know whether people, know that regardless of whether you're fleeing from an abusive ex-partner, and as Carol said, in many cases, in fact, probably most cases, these are child sexual abuse cases, sometimes without the mother actually realizing it at the time. Or regardless of whether it's a child protection case and you're trying to save your child from social services, there are laws under the Hague Conference on Private International Law, which are designed to be able to bring you back to the jurisdiction that you're trying to escape from, that you're trying to seek safety from. We'll be talking about the Child Abduction Convention tomorrow. And actually later today at 4 o'clock, we'll have a former European Commission official who worked on child protection in the EU, who will talk about the Hague Inter-Country Adoption Convention and the amount of corruption that she saw. She was told that the Hague Convention on Child Protection is not about child protection, it's about consumer protection. And that says a lot, doesn't it? And unfortunately, there are very, very few jurisdictions where families are safe. These lobbies are incredibly powerful. This is why we are all taking a massive risk by sitting here today, talking together, by being prepared to do this publicly, because there is so much money involved. These lobbies are so aggressive. In the United States, there are people who've lost their lives because they have spoken out about it. And I hope this is not going to happen to any of us here, but I think if we're going to prevent it, we need to come together. We need to have safety in numbers and get this out into the public domain, because it is unconscionable. I'll get off my soapbox now. Who's next? Let me see. In the queue. Luba, welcome. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Julia. Julia, please. You have the floor. Thank you. Julia, are you able to come on?
Oh, yes.
Hi, brilliant.
I was just rearranging tins in my kitchen while I was listening to you. Hello, everybody. I'm on at 2:30, so a little plug there. And obviously, listening to all of this, there are so many parallels. And it was great to hear, people with disabilities speaking. So I wanted to say that, having heard the speech, my late mother was a children's social worker, and she used to talk shop in the 80s. She used to tell me about the mothers with autism and learning disabilities, although we didn't use the word autism back then, that were having their children taken away. So that was going on wholesale back in the 80s, and it seems to me that loads of laws have been passed both before the 80s and after, and actually they're just completely ignored. They've never been followed. Practice has never changed, and to this day it hasn't changed. So the law is a facade when it comes to us. Also, when we talk about the family courts, someone said that there was evidence of perjury and fabrication, and my experience is not so much in the family courts, but in the coronial system, I have had the misfortune to see how that works. And it is described as being non-adversarial. So when the people we love die, and it is discovered that evidence has been fabricated. So, for example, a member of staff will have written up an observation chart 4 years after someone died, or a care plan 4 years after they died, and somehow it has been found out that this observation plan or whatever was not in existence when the person was alive. It's been fabricated. That member of staff will simply, when challenged, and asked, why is this evidence fabricated, will say, oh, I just thought the family might feel better if they thought that their dead son had a care plan, or that someone had been observing. That's really serious, isn't it? And it led to the lack of observations that led to the death. Nothing is done. There's no accountability. The coronial courts are rather like you described the family courts. There's no accountability. It's not about accountability. What I don't understand is, when were we asked? When did we say yes? We don't want them to be about accountability. Why is accountability existing in every other area of law, but not when it comes to our precious children and loved ones and their right to life? So that's really concerning. And I'm going to go now. But yeah, I'll be talking about hidden disabilities, our families and the law from 2:30. So yeah, I'll just carry on listening and stop waffling. See you then.
You're very welcome, and thank you so much. Yes, it's absolutely devastating what's happening to families and children with disabilities. I think if the public had any idea, how do we get this message out? Next in the queue is Luba. Hi Luba, are you able to join? Luba, we're not able to hear you. I'm not sure if you've got tech problem like mute or...
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Hello. Thank you very much, Natalie, for inviting me for this conference. Yes, I believe we need to stick together and address huge problem. I mean, it's system. System is designed and it's coerced. It's coercive treatment, coercive practices. I have been through almost 6 years of the Court of Protection in England. And what happened? I have a daughter. She is disabled, and she is not a child. She's 37 years old, and the town where I live, it's Sunderland, built a new what it's called development for disabled, and brochure sounds ideal for my daughter. You know, they promise so much. They promise medical help, I mean, with appointments, building social skills, friends, go on holidays together, community, you know, and yes, we was both on this and applied, and my daughter received place at this place, but problems started from day one. Ella is only my daughter. She's only my daughter. Everything is best for her. I love her dearly and she loves me. And so my husband and I put so much efforts to make her a beautiful apartment. I bought beautiful, expensive bedding for her, embroidered, and next day I come. I said, next day I will come and we will make some photos to find everything together with duvet, with all these little pillows embroidered on a wet floor room. In a shower, in a bedroom, and it was a trip hazard for my daughter to walk around. You know, she cannot use toilet because it was spread, you know, on a wet floor. Carers walking in their shoes, and of course it's dirty. So I raised my concerns with the manager, and all sorts of things went on, started to happen. I found myself cleaning after carers all the time, and attitude. I mean, attitude. They just expected that, you know. Like example, this one used small pots of medication, which one should be only one used once, but Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. But carers just would leave for me and, you know, give medication and then, Luba, for you to wash in a sink. And Luba was washing 3 times per day, you know, cleaning after them. So, yes, I raised my concerns and first with the manager, and manager came and she sat and she listened, and then she stood up and she said, you are annoying. My staff is experienced, and she left. Of course, I was so upset, I was crying, and on the phone to social services. And this is when social services become involved. But since social services become involved, matters become much, much worse. Not better, much, much worse. Social worker came and she said, Mother, you step back and let carers be in charge, the abuse started. I mean, abuse, medication abuse. I made a complaint in October 2017. My daughter and I, we went to a solicitor, because she's been abused with medication called sodium docusate. This medication, when I looked up, when I discovered, I did not even know that my daughter was on this medication, but a member of the staff, for some reason, approached the hospital. I don't know why, because my daughter was discharged from hospital, and ordered double dose of this stuff, which cannot be used more than 1 week, because it will give so many problems. My daughter was kept for many months, and they doubled this dose, and saliva was running from her. You know, she had diarrhea, sickness. It is unbelievable what went on. And when I raised concerns and stopped this medication, I mean, I phoned to GP, because my daughter was appointed to GP. I phoned to GP, I explained what's going on. I said, look, you know very well that we went to private hospital with my daughter to find out, because she had some problems with her bowel. And at one point, it's not that she had problems, but I asked, sorry, I'm taking too long. I will try to cut off. Anyway, problems started. I complained to social services. Problems become worse, and then on Saturday, 2nd of June in 2018, I discovered yet I was served with the Court of Protection. And on Saturday I received this paper, and on Monday I was standing in court accused of most horrific crimes. I mean, sexual relationship with my daughter. Honestly, about that I am coercing her in thinking, or that I am rude with staff, that I am bad behaved person. Honestly, I was in such a shock. I sat on the metro after hearing, and I was sitting on the metro, and I was going backwards and forwards, you know. And then when I came home, I lost my voice. I went to see MP next day. I cannot speak because it's such a stress. It was such stress. No, but then I thought, okay, no, court. At least I will have opportunity to say what's going on. But what went in the Court of Protection is there was 6 years of crimes. My daughter has been badly abused. She is still badly abused. She is in distress. She is suffering. It was all medically proven, because what went on behind Court of Protection, I mean, her medication was, it's medication problems. There was, it's what went on. I mean, it's impossible to say in this such, but what I want to say, that Court of Protections and family courts are corrupt courts. I went through, I don't know, I think 6 appeals. I made 6 appeals right now to the Royal Court of Justice. It's corrupt, the same as other courts. It's corrupt. I mean, no, excuse me, how can be multiple mistakes in law being made, and they saying that there is no remedy? They refuse my appeals, and
please say in your opinion. In your opinion, rather than they are corrupt. Say in your opinion.
I see.
You've got to be very careful what you say. Okay, I'm sorry for butting in.
Thank you for correcting. I'm English is my second language. I'm writing better than I'm speaking, because when I'm writing, I'm always trying to check and translate.
Look, but all that Carol is trying to say is she's trying to warn us, and it's a good warning. I need to heed it as well. That when we say something which could potentially you know, sort of put it.
I don't care. I don't care anymore because I got a hearing on Monday, on 22nd January, committal hearing. They won't put me in prison because I went public with my case, and I published a lot of material and videos, and I don't believe, and I think, and I believe that it is in public interest to know about crimes committed behind code of protection. So yes, I've got a hearing, and I left country. I asked for political asylum, and I managed to speak to human rights solicitor who is working for the Human Rights Court in Strasbourg. And his advice was that I cannot appeal against judgment because judgment was served in 2020, but I can appeal against court orders. But at the moment, I'm trying to find legal representation, trying to find a barrister who can take this work forward, because I believe that it must be started out in England. You know, how can it be 21st century England and I cannot find legal representation? It just, or advocate, you know, 6 years I was advocating for my daughter and for myself, and I changed 5 solicitors because of corruption, and I changed 4 barristers because of corruption. I had a couple of very good statements from a couple of barristers, top London barristers.
In your opinion?
No, I have them. I have statements. I have statements, skeleton arguments from Oliver Lewis, Doughty Street Chambers. He's a top barrister, and he is speaking about trauma-informed treatment. He's speaking about.
Would you mind if we cut this short, because we need to take a break in a little while for a bit of lunch and
listening. I'm just asking for a little bit support, please. If you can share my posts, because on Monday it will be hearing, and I will publish everything in regards to this committal hearing, because this hearing and this court is unlawful, I believe, and I will try my best to prove it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luba. Please feel free to put into the chat any links to social media posts where people can support you. And I don't know, is it possible for people to attend the hearing? Yes,
it's open hearing, but you have to be in person. I don't know why. Or you can ask for links. I think you can ask for links.
Right. Okay.
I don't have yet any. I don't have yet any links or any information. But I will publish us because I believe that Celia. I am in contact with Professor Celia Kinziger, and I believe that she will publish this hearing, and then we will go from there. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay,
and you know, Natalie, I'm so sorry. You were talking at the beginning about this UN special reporter that she will come in February between. I know that, but then you was talking to, if you've got stories to share, how can I contact her? How can I get in touch with her? Thank you.
I will put the link in here. You're welcome. Everybody is welcome to send in their submissions, or if you can find an organisation that might be able to support you with that. Let me just check I put the right link in here.
Yes, I am in contact with Human Rights Watch as well. Oh. And they promised an interview with me. Hopefully I can ask them to put forward it. Okay. So where is the link? Can I have a link?
If you can see the chat, you'll be able to access it. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalie.
We've got MC online. While MC is sorting out her mic and joining us.
Natalie, you got something for me?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
hi. I think someone got themselves unmuted. Yeah. If anyone else could please.
I tell you what, I'll just do that. I've just muted everybody. So MC, if you want to unmute yourself again.
I have. Thank you. So basically, I went through family court myself. I grew up in a household where they placed me with my father, who was very abusive. I lived there. I walked out when I was 16. As many of us know, the cycle of abuse has effects. From when I was 15 until I was 25, I was with my own abuser. I had my daughter when I was 17. I became very severely unwell with hypothyroid and epilepsy. Now, social services got involved because he was beating me up on one occasion. He got involved because of domestic abuse. 6 months later, when I think I just turned 19, I was severely unwell. They said, oh, you know, you haven't got any support, because obviously I was completely isolated. Just sign this paper and we'll get your epilepsy and everything checked out, and we'll just take your daughter for 14 days. They didn't tell me to get any legal advice. I was very severely sick. I was just turned 19. Didn't know what the hell this paper was. It was a Section 20 to hand my daughter over to social services. Now I know. I signed this paper. They then supported my abuser's father to take my daughter. So they actually put her in the house with the abuser, which was the very first reason they got involved. And it took 19 months for me to get my daughter home. So those 14 days were very long. Suddenly I was a danger to her welfare, which I still can't understand. I was put into supervised contact. There's a lot to it. Anyway, she came home. We are now 11 years on since she came home. And 2 years ago, my daughter, when she started high school, she went through a lot. And I've actually got a report which says a lot of it is to do with the trauma that she suffered when she was separated at the age of 2, 3 from all that she knew, her mother. And this is where I mean they have no statistical research of what actually comes thereafter in children's lives, on after everything they do to those children. And the trauma, there's no research on what their decisions of risk of harm is based on. So when my daughter came home, soon after I had my thyroid removed, and yeah, things got better, and I decided I can't. This whole thing is unjust. I had social services sitting there in meetings lying about me in front of my eyes, lies. I'm like, oh, this never happened. You know, they gaslight you. You know, family court, social services, biggest gaslighters ever. So then I was like, no. This is disgusting, and if I have anything to do with it, I can't. So I then I ended up having 3 children with this man, and I finally left him in 2016. But whilst doing so, I studied law. I did undergrad and postgraduate law, and I started working in a law firm 11 years ago. And once the year my daughter came home, and I became a solicitor. I now am self-employed, and I only take on the cases that I want to. I also have PTSD, and I also have ADHD. And a lot of work I'm doing at the moment is based around, I'm seeing what the courts are doing against mothers who are neurodiverse. Up until about a year ago, especially being a solicitor, I was a bit like, can't tell anyone about my health issues, you know, this whole systematic stigma. But actually, I think since July last year, I write to the courts, you know, when they have their 7-day deadlines. So I'm sorry, you know, I'm neurodiverse and I need a bit more time. And I think the people who suffer with these conditions or issues, whatever we call them, I call them superpowers, we need to bang these drums. The louder we bang these drums, the more we try and get rid of this ignorance. And I am beating those drums, and I am saying, you know, this is me, and under the Equality Act, you owe me this. You're a public service, and you're going to give it to me. And I think they then, you know, it might give some of those very rare half-decent judges, a bit of food for thought. Now, I'm going to quickly wrap this up, but what I am going to say is one thing that I have come to the conclusion is that, yes, there are a lot of lawyers out there who have failed their clients. A lot of cases that come to me are appeals, cases that have really, really gone wrong. Now, and I'm constantly trying to put these things right if I can. But one thing I've realised is the only way anyone is ever going to learn, in my opinion, is if it starts costing them money. When it hits the government's pocket, they may start to think, okay, we need to do something, because all they care about is money. So the UN, the ECHR, very important, because actually the case that I sent through, the Luka versus Republic of Moldova, you can see in there, and I'm sure there's many parents in the UK who can resonate, where their rights are being violated. The authorities are failing in their public duties to, they're failing their positive obligations to thoroughly investigate domestic abuse allegations, to protect individuals from further abuse. The police aren't doing their job. Social services, they tell lies. There's many things. So I think the best way is, so this UN Special Rapporteur, the call for evidence, very important. I think Marie put in an email address that people can email to, because we are putting together a letter to her. I think the more statistics we have to be able to say, this is what is happening on the ground, because it's all good, some of us, writing to her and say, we know of this. But if we actually have statistics to say, X amount of people, and there's many more out there, that their rights are being violated every single day. And, taking cases to the ECHR, yes, it takes a number of years, but actually the government lawyers then have to instruct Strasbourg. We talk about Mrs. Chatterjee in Norway. She went to the European courts. Now, there's no court fee. You're not at risk of being hit with costs at the ECHR like you are in the UK courts, because obviously it's a system designed, in my opinion, to make you not want to seek help. But the more you, like I say, bang these drums and take it further, they have to then instruct their lawyers. And actually, if rights are violated, they have to pay damages, they have to pay costs. So the more it hits their pockets, I believe there may start to be some sort of thought-provoking, okay, we need to look at what's going on in the family courts. We need to look at, why all these people are complaining. So the starting point for now is this UN call for evidence. The call for evidence is not for no reason. She is asking, I want to know what is going wrong, so that they can then try and implement some form of intervention, recommendation, mandate, whatever it is. But the thing is, the starting point is they must have that information, and if they don't have that information, they can't do anything. So yeah, that's all, Nat. I don't know what else I can say at the moment, but we're not all bad. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we've got to really keep an open mind to, there are people within the system who actually are well-intentioned and doing their best, and trying to identify them and work with them would be so valuable. Yeah, I was just trying to write into the chat, but I'll say it instead. My fear with the UN is that it has no powers of enforcement. The UN Special Rapporteur has made strong statements against certain countries, I think twice against Spain, for giving children into the custody of paedophile fathers, and nothing changed, I don't think, in practice. And the problem is, the one thing is the law, and maybe one case getting resolved satisfactorily, an appeal. The other reality is the hundreds or thousands of judges across the country, any given country, on the ground, who are doing exactly what they want, ignoring the law or making a mess inadvertently of people's lives without reprisal. And my sort of second concern is, as somebody who's appealed to the ECHR and knows other people who've appealed to the ECHR and also the International Criminal Court, it looks rather like the ECHR is not immune to these problems with the justice system, which in the UK go all the way up to the Supreme Court. There is somebody I meant to invite who's actually a Scottish advocate, a judge, who wrote a book about his experiences of what he deems the whitewash of the independent child abuse inquiry in care homes in Scotland. And he believes that he has evidence that these problems are known about at the Supreme Court, and these are systemic problems with corruption and institutional child abuse, which we have got to open our eyes to when we're approaching these, courts of highest instance at the national and international level. And I would suggest that the way to address it is for us to do exactly what we're doing, to get together, to find safety in numbers, to share information, to design community solutions, to build up public awareness and pressure, so we put politicians and the courts in a position where they have no option but to secure justice or look very compromised indeed, I think. That's my two penneth. Sorry if I hope I don't appear dogmatic when I say that. Yeah, it would be nice to take a break, but there's a few people who have got their hands up. Is there anybody who's desperate to say their two words, and maybe we should try to...
I'm just going to cut in a bit quickly. I'm sorry to butting in again. Basically, we have to be very mindful, and I have been advised by someone that we are battling against what is in the public interest. And as I understand, that means that even if we have a court case that is possibly likely to win and embarrass, that they are going to stop this case because of the quote, in the public, it's not in the public interest. So of course, just be aware of that. Thank you very much. Sorry for butting in. I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Anybody else itching to have their say, or maybe we should take a break for 45 minutes?
Hello, can I speak?
Yes, please do. Hi.
Yeah, hi. Hi. Hello, madam. Yeah, my two daughters, the local authority removed from my care on 2029. And my elder daughter now she is 19, and the younger daughter she's in foster care. She is now 6 years. When they removed, my younger daughter was only 2 years. And we got support from the legal aid, but the legal aid, they were not supporting me. They were supporting only the local authority, social workers. And even though they did not ask any evidence from the mother side, and the expert, they provide the expert certificate. The experts also support only local authorities. They given the evidence. And on 2021 our case has completed, and my daughter now 6 years, she's in foster care, and they got given full care order to my daughter. And after the court hearing, the local authority is not allowing me to see my daughter regularly. So I am getting in contact with my daughter yearly 3 times. Are you able to listen me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, only 3 times. Our contact is going very good, and they are not increasing our contact. I have done psychotherapy, and I have done parenting course, everything, and I submitted to the local authority on 2022. every 6 months they are reviewing, independent review officer making the conference, and they are reviewing, but no changes. They are not giving extra contact. They are breaking our relationship with my daughter. When I'm looking, seeing the contact time, when I'm seeing my daughter, she's looking very unclean. She was not well dressed, not combing her hair. Very sad about these things. I am working in NHS. I don't have any criminal case here. Still, I am working. I don't know. I want my daughter back. I need my two babies in India. So I'm
I'm so sorry, I accidentally muted everybody. I didn't mean to. Shili, would you mind unmuting yourself again so we can continue to hear you?
I'm sorry.
That's my fault.
Yeah. So my two children, they are 10 months babies, are in India. So I am afraid to bring them here. So I'm not about taking care of my children in India. They are with my parents. I'm thinking that if I bring them here, they will remove from my care. So I don't want to do it. My elder daughter, you see, she's very independent now. She's enjoying her life. She's getting so many fun from the local authority. She's not working, and she's enjoying. My 6-year daughter is suffering in. I am from India. My foster care parents are British parents. She's losing their identity also. So I am very concerned about my daughter in foster care. So I am able to look after my child. I have the ability to look after my children, but I want my my children together in my care. So I need some support from you and the concerned person. So if I asked my previous lawyer, then she's telling that you do whatever the local authority is telling. They are not asking anything to do it. I am requesting them, what you want me to do it, tell me. I can do it. If I want to do any other courses or anything else, I can do whatever for my daughter. But they are not answering my questions. They are not giving regular contact. They are not giving contact report also. They are keeping by themselves. If I see the contact reports, if I want to make any changes, I can do it for next time. But they are not giving the contact reports. If I am requesting, they are telling they don't have the right to give it. They will keep it by themselves. So I'm not sure what to do. I concerned with my one other lawyer. After hearing from me, the lawyers agreed that, okay, you have the right to get back your daughter. Then afterwards, the same lawyer talked with the local authority. Then he changed his mind. You don't have any chance to get back your daughter. He's saying like that. I am the mother, no. Too much is making. I am working as a nurse. It's very difficult for me to go for work also. Every time I am struggling.
I know. We absolutely appreciate it. It's heartbreaking to hear every single story like this. And I can see in the chat that there are other people who, so I think I've got my lunch being delivered. Oh no, a cup of coffee, thank you. Yeah.
Can I ask you one thing? If I bring my daughter for the children from India, they will remove from my care.
I think the people have put into the chat that they share your concern. You know what? I think this is not, unfortunately, a forum where we can really offer solutions to individual cases, but it is helpful to hear the depths of suffering and unfairness that is being inflicted on families. So what I would suggest, I'll put in the chat again, the link to sign up. Let's find ways to keep together, to sort of form a community, to form a set of resources, that we can support each other. find ways through this. And this won't be the last meeting, I'm sure of it. You know, I do hope that somebody won't take issue with what we're doing and try and shut us down, because all we're doing really is exercising a public right to association and to discuss matters of public interest, and a very, very serious issue of the rights of families and children. So let them try and shut us down, but glad we're in touch. Let me put the link in the chat, and let me suggest that we go and get a lunch break, and please do join us again at 1 o'clock. I'll be talking about sort of a bit more structural issues of civil justice reform. Then we've got some very interesting topics coming up. We'll have a Roly Post from is a former European Commission official who worked in child protection on the international level. She actually has contacts with people who also other Indian families who whose children were taken and sent to Western countries. That's something that Support Not Separation are also, you know, dealing with. So let's just be glad we've come together. Let's commit that we came here to seek justice for ourselves and for our children, for safety for our children. You don't have to be. You'd have to be really stupid not to see that taking children from their mothers and from their families is going to do serious long-term harm to them. So I don't even think we need research about that. But I'm sure there is research going back a long time ago, which unfortunately has been overridden by very, very foolish research commissioned to show that in actual fact it's actually absolutely fine. Social workers are getting trained. I've seen on Facebook somebody saying, oh, well, it's always hard to remove a child, you know, from their a trusted parent and see them screaming, but never mind, because soon they'll form other connections. It'll be absolutely fine. No, there are biological bonds with your birth families. Birth families are important. Birth mothers are important, and this is for our children. So let's, you know, I'm so glad that for your contribution, for all your contributions. But so that I can get through the day today, it's a long day. We're working until 10 o'clock today and then again tomorrow. Let's take a break, but keep in touch. And yeah, grandmothers too. This is about families. Yeah, all our families, the extended families are important. Yeah, here's the link again. This is for signing up for the, what do you call it? The community. So to keep getting updates, news, future events, forming local level, country level, global level task forces to address this, networks of people who are willing to offer support of one kind or another, and campaigning. Yeah. Okay, is it okay, everybody, if we take a break? Can we see each other at 1 o'clock? Thank you for sharing, everybody. I think the chat is really valuable. There are links, you know, and offers of help there. Please, everybody, always exercise caution whenever you're seeking help from anybody. Please check their backgrounds out a little bit. If you're dealing with professionals, it's worth having a look on Companies House and the Charity Commission to see exactly, you know, sort of what their background is and if they've got any conflict of interest. We can't be too careful. We've been failed too many times. So yeah, I'm exhausted. Should we see each other again at 1 o'clock? Shili, are you okay?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for what you're going through and what all of us are going through. I think many of us are either in the same position or being in the same position. So I hope at least we can take comfort knowing we're not alone, and we're here to try to find solutions.
Okay.
Okay, everybody. All right, take care. Take some time out, get a breath of fresh air, get a drink, stay hydrated, reach out to a trusted friend if you Have somebody that you can confide in, even if it's on the phone. Just try not to be alone with this, and yeah, try to take heart. I think things are changing. Things have got to change. Things that, you know, people are not happy to put up anymore with these levels of injustice, I believe. Okay, everybody, I'll go offline now until 1 o'clock. I'll leave a slide up to show everybody as a reminder what time we're back, and we'll see each other later.